You probably recognize behind me here, it was a few weeks ago, we had a young lady here, Melodia Bastien, I think I said that right, was on here. And the boxing world in Sarnia has gotten a lot of attention recently, and it's for a lot of reasons, but one reason in particular, this guy right here, Tom Hennessey at Bluewater Boxing Club. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. I meant that, though, like the boxing world's really been getting a lot of attention lately, especially since we just had the Canadian Nationals here. The Canadian Nationals, right here in Sarnia, little Sarnia, Ontario. How did that make you feel to know that that was going to be happening here?
Good, good. I mean, we actually applied for it, yeah. And I think there was probably 4 or 5 other cities in the country.
Oh, okay. We
presented our case, and based on past things that we've done here with Nationals, we were granted the Nationals, and then you know, we knew that we had a couple of possibilities to put on the team. That's more exciting if you got locals on. I mean,
yeah,
I see
for sure.
Some people run the Nationals and there's nobody from their city even in it.
I couldn't imagine doing it that way.
And well, you know, you put in for the year before.
Oh, I see, right. So you don't necessarily know who
and the kids don't make the provincial team, then they're not at Nationals. So we were lucky enough to have 2, and that made it more exciting. And yeah, so we're proud of what we were able to achieve.
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to, I was fortunate enough to be there and experience that and live stream it for you. And that was a whole new experience. I'd seen some boxing before. I follow along. But that was an experience I'll never forget. And we'll come back to the importance of all of that. But let's go back to the beginning. You told me you're from, is it Newfoundland or Newfoundland?
Newfoundlanders call it Newfoundland.
Right?
We call them, mainlanders call it Newfoundland.
Okay.
And I think both are right. It depends on who you are. So I'm from Newfoundland.
Okay, very good. And how long were you there before you came to Canada?
So I was 12 when we left. The family, my little town that I was in called Bishops Falls, relied on a local pulp and paper mill.
Oh.
And that downsized dramatically the year before we left in 1968. And my dad was on the road working all the time as a heavy equipment operator. We had some family up here in Sarnia. Yeah. And so my dad one day said, I'm going to go up there and see if I can find a job.
Okay.
Sarnia was booming. Sure. You know, we had Polystar, we had things being built. My dad was very industrious, so he came up, and I think maybe 2 months later, my mom got the phone call, you know, bag him up.
Right.
Get on the bus.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Right.
And we jumped on a bus and a boat and a train and landed in Sarnia, I think 3 days later.
Wow, amazing. And what did your mom do? Did she work, or was she just full-time mom?
Yeah, she was stay-at-home mom. Worked, I mean, obviously younger, but once she started having us, we took in lots of relatives and stuff as well over the years. So yeah, she was just a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was out making a living, and we went to work fairly early back then. So you know, we were looking after ourselves.
And how many brothers and sisters?
Actually, brothers and sisters, there was 9 of us.
Wow.
But then we had some extras along the way. So there was my parents raised I think 15 or 16. They actually brought up
just
from
like
kids.
Other kids,
other relatives that would move here from
Oh,
Newfoundland,
okay, right.
And you know, as young age, and they would just stay here, and then they would go on. Some were even still in town.
Yes, I know the one.
Yes, you do,
Dad.
Yeah.
But wow, 15 or just the immediate. Couldn't imagine even thinking about having that. I couldn't imagine having more than 2 or 3 in this day and age.
Some were already gone. You know, my sister had already moved out west to Smithers, where she still lives. I had a brother that's gone now, God rest his soul, and he had moved to Toronto already. So some had already moved on because they were older. Right. I mean, my oldest sister now, and boy, I hope she don't see this, she's 80. And the youngest has passed on, and she'd be 54 64, so there was quite a gap.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 67 now.
Okay, so you're like in the middle of the pack?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's older and younger,
Yeah, right.
and you know, it was a fun time when we grew up here.
I was going to say, was it fun turmoil?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were proud to say we were South End kids. You know, we come from the South End, and you know, if the people from the south of the Cut was on listening, they're going to tell me off and say you really didn't live in the South End. I lived on Divine Street. So
That's not the South End?
Oh, not to the people that live south of the rail cut.
You're South End.
Yeah, that's it. So, but yeah, we're proud, and we, you know, we grew up and we had good work ethics. So, you know, they all went to work early in life and moved out, and so it was a great time. I'm proud. I went to Johnson Memorial and then on to Skits, and you know, kids played a lot out in the church parking lots. We played ball hockey and you know, stuff like that. I mean, you know, you would organize a ball hockey game, and we would go to Ross Avenue, and they'd have a whole team.
Right.
And like they had kids like Dan Corrigan and people like that played hockey locally, and you know, we'd set games up street against street and stuff like that. So it was good times. Good times.
Friendly competitive, right?
Friendly competitive was as a good word.
Yeah, right. But that was a really different time too, right? You know, like, I mean, you say you came here in 68, like I was born in 69 and I'm 55, so that was a couple days ago. But who ruled the roost, mom or dad?
Mom.
Yeah. Boy, you didn't even think about that.
No.
Yeah.
No, my mom was the matriarch of the family. Tough growing up, tough, you know, living through my mom lost her first husband in the Korean War. Oh. And then my dad come back from the Korean War and met my mom. So I had a older brother and sister that is from the previous marriage.
Okay.
And then had us. So you know, she grew up tough, and you know, don't get me wrong, the greatest mom in the world, but you know, she expected you to work hard, do what you were told, you know, and so on. And I think that's where we all got our work ethic, is from our mother.
Yeah. Because, well, then growing up in the South End, whatever, then how young were you? Like, do you remember your first job? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
Went to work at the Drawbridge Inn.
Oh, wow.
As a little boy, and 12 years old.
Yeah.
And was a bellhop.
Okay.
Stayed there right till I was 19, and loved every minute of it. Enjoyed learning from the owner at the time. His name was Reiner Block Anderson.
Yeah.
And he taught me so much.
That's like 7 years for a young child, 12 years old, you said, till 19. 7 years in one job.
I started as a bellhop. I did desk clerk, I did auditor, I did assistant manager, I did cook, I did you know, clean rooms. Whatever needed to be done. You know, the family, it was like a family to me. And and I actually went to work for the parent company, North American Construction, right from the Drawbridge.
Yeah.
And then got into the plants and stuff. But I attribute, because after I started my own business, and I attributed everything that I did in business to what Reiner taught me about business. And he had some mottos that he would tell you, and they all held true. And so very proud of him for what he did for me, and what I learned from him and stuff.
If there's one thing that you really learned from him that stands out, what would that be?
Cash flow is not profit. Mm-hmm. And too many people in business forget sometimes to pay the bills and to do things with the money that comes in. And a matter of fact, I can tell you the sayings I learned was, cash flow is not profit. Never buy anything on credit that depreciates faster than you can pay it off.
Right.
And never forget the horse that got you in the race. And so when you had a business, if it worked, then work the business.
Right.
Don't go on to a business that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And so those were the guiding guidelines, and I stayed within my lane, and you know, that's how the business came about.
And you've applied it for a long time. I mean, I was talking about you behind your back the other day to someone. They said, don't tell him I said this, but boy, that Tom, he was really influential in the valley. Like from a safety standpoint, right? And to getting some things done in the valley that might not have come about. You must realize that you've had that impact.
Yeah, I've been told it, and so I started at fiberglass back in 1977 when I left you know, the drawbridge, and you know, I always tell people it was the best place I ever worked and the most horrendous working conditions that anybody could ever work in.
Oh yeah.
And yet, you know, I spent 13 years there, and but the union at the time, the old OCAW union, they were looking for people to broaden their horizon, become safety activists.
Right.
And they would send you for training and stuff. And every time somebody said, hey, we're going to train people in safety, health, and the law, I would raise my hand. And I took it, and then I was doing training in the plant. So when I got laid off, a local guy was running a safety business in town, Des Bradley.
Yeah.
And he had a little safety business that was funded by the government called SOSH, Sarnia Occupational Safety and Health Center.
Okay.
And he offered me a job and said, hey, you could be a teacher. And I said, well, I don't know about that, but I'll give it a try. And I started teaching Wemyss back in the day.
Oh, wow. And
I loved it. And I did it at many of the reserves around. They were having to teach their workforces, and that was my little niche, and I learned so much from that. And then I got an offer of a job at Ethel.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I said, you know what, sure. So I went and did a job at Ethel for about almost 5 years. Did a lot of safety there. And then it downsized, and I thought, boy, I've closed enough plants. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own business.
Yeah.
And so then I started TGH. There was a local safety company starting up, hadn't started yet, called the Industrial Education Cooperative. And they were looking for people to do training and stuff there. So I grabbed onto a position there and started doing safety training, and that's what you were alluding to, because if you wanted to work in one of the plants, you had to come there and get trained.
Right.
And so myself and another guy by the name of Paul Terrio, we got very involved in it. He had his business running and I had my business running, so we ran it simultaneously, and that's how the IEC started.
Yeah.
We wrote the programs and taught the programs and stuff, and I was charmed because you know, the local plants embraced us, the local contractors embraced us, and you know, I stayed there for almost 13 years. For some reason, 13 years seems to be my limit.
Okay.
of being anywhere. So, and then I left that because I picked up a big contract, national contract for the safety company, and I started doing that, and really I stopped working locally. But I was invited to the, just this past Tuesday, to the Sarnia Construction Association and their Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And they invited me, and boy, what a step back in time, seeing some of the old guys and
Right.
retirees and walking around shaking hands. And
Can imagine the conversations.
a lot of fun. lot of
Back
fun.
in the day.
Back in the day,
All those conversations.
when it all
were-
started.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
So I guess it was worth your while to put your hand up at fiberglass.
You know what? When I first started my company, a gentleman from the Observer, and I don't remember who it was, asked me if he could do an interview with me, and I did. And I remember he said to me, he said, "You know, you worked at fiberglass," and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I heard it was the worst place in the world to work," and I said it was the best place in the world to work. They treated me good. The conditions were horrible.
Yeah.
Yes, but we had, when I started there was over 1,000 people, and I said they were the best people on earth.
Yeah.
And I said we had great friendships and stuff like that. Indeed, later on when I started my company and I had an opportunity, I hired a bunch of those people.
Right.
And you know what? They were great employees. They were good coworkers one time, and one of them worked with me for the whole time. He worked with me from the time we left and I started my company till the time I sold my company.
Did that come from your advice, the motto of like basically don't forget?
Yeah, don't forget the horse that got you in the race.
Yeah.
Don't forget the people. Don't forget anything about it. And I always aspired to, you know, help the people that helped you. And they helped me back in the day, and I was proud of the fact, and I'll carry that banner for all my life of where I worked, fiberglass and Ethel, and I was in the union, the old OCAW union, and it did a lot of good things back when times were a lot tougher.
Tougher than they are now?
Way tougher than they are now.
How so?
We and I'm talking about the workers in Sarnia, we persevered through some pretty tough times, and the rest of the country, I believe, benefits from some of the things that we learned,
Okay.
some of the things that we aspired to do, and some of the traditions that we had for safety. When I was at the IEC in the early 2000, we were the safest city in Ontario. Ontario was the safest province in the country. And I think that was all the things that we did, both company owners, the people that worked at the companies, the unions. I think everybody really gelled together and formed a whole lot of relationships with the total goal of let's keep people safe. And if I could, use an example, when I started at fiberglass, we measured how many people died on the job. And very quickly, after a short period of time, that became redundant. We weren't killing people anymore. So then we started measuring days away from work,
Right.
Lost time injuries.
Yeah.
And very quickly, within a few years, that became redundant. We weren't having people stay home from work.
Right.
They were working. So then we measured, how many medical aids we had,
Right.
or first aids
Accident
we had.
free. I remember my dad worked at Dow in 58 and then 72 before the big strike. He went and worked at Union Carbide.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember going there one time and there was a sign, X many days accident free. Yeah. Were you a part of that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did that, and we did so much training.
Was psychological then, was it, to get to a part of it, or just it was like so many deaths, somebody, like you gave a bunch of examples, that was partly psychological, or just making people aware of okay.
I think making people aware.
We gotta pay attention.
And I remember I used to use an example, and when they built the Hoover Dam,
Okay.
126 people died.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The first guy to die on the Hoover Dam, his name was John Tierney. And the last guy that died, I believe it was Frank Tierney. I might be wrong with that name. And it was father and son. And they were 13 years apart when they died. And 126 people died on the Hoover Dam project. And when the project was over, they closed the road, they had a huge party. And you know what they celebrated? They had planned to lose 150.
Oh.
Because back in the day, when they put major projects together,
Right.
they would say, I think we can have this project and we're only going to lose 150. And that's what we're going to aspire to do. When truly and honestly, what they should have said was, we're going to do this project and we're not going to have any lost time accidents or medical aids is what we measure now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mindset to say, don't climb on that piece of equipment because you'll fall off of it and you'll hurt yourself.
That'd be me.
Go get a ladder and do it properly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it got to. So yes, I believe that
Setting goals and proper goals and realistic goals. And,
yeah.
But back then though too, like, and I don't know when it was built or whatever, but like, it just wasn't as, safety wasn't on the forefront of the minds, right? I think it was just, okay, we're going out to do the job and we expect stuff to go bad.
Yep.
And when it does happen, we'll deal with it and then we'll just keep moving on. The railroad would be a great example of lack of concern for safety, right?
Well, yeah, and the problem is that that was expected. You know, when a guy did die, we would say, okay, we got to bury him.
Yeah. Just pull them aside. And there you go.
You got to get. When they built a railroad, that was the way it was, and when they built some of the infrastructures, that's the way it was. And I look back now, and I use that as fuel for my fire. When we did training, we talked a lot about, hey, that's what we want to aspire to do, is nobody getting hurt. That became quite a byline, right?
Yeah.
And it was all about let's not hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Let's have this job.
Your heart was, and I've talked to a lot of people about you behind your back, and they all pretty much said the similar things. Like, Tom's heart was in it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have to be. I think.
I believed it.
Yeah.
I believed that we could go to work and not get hurt. And people, it was funny because at the time, we had lots of people that would come up to me and say, well, yeah, but if I'm driving down the road and my tire blows and I roll into the ditch, how could I avoid that?
Check the tires, check the air in the tires.
Change the tire before you went for a ride.
Well, look both ways before you cross the street.
Right.
And you still could, yeah.
Yeah, so there's always something that happened before the incident happened. And I remember I used to do a lot of accident investigations, and some of them were fatalities. And when I use my examples, I always say, if you asked that guy, the guy that died, if you asked him a question, you said, would you change anything about what you just did? I think he'd say, yeah.
I've never liked the word accident because it's like car accidents, great example. Oh, well, it was just an accident, or like stuff happens, it's an accident. An accident occurs if there's two vehicles involved or two people involved. At least one made an error in judgment, didn't check the air in the tire. Like, there was something that likely could have prevented that. So accidents don't just happen.
Nope. Somebody precluded that incident that caused an accident.
Didn't look both ways. Didn't put my turn signal, whatever.
Yeah, and people would try to change my mind.
Right. So was it an easy write-off for people, I guess, coming back to that word accident? Was it for people to go, well, it was just an accident. Could have happened to anybody.
Back then it was. Back then it was, and now
we just dismissed it.
It's funny because if you talk to the younger generation, for instance, I love one thing about the younger generation in industry is, I'll stand up in front of the room and I'll say, during the building of the Hoover Dam, 126 people died. Right. And as soon as I say it, someone grabs their phone and checks. They fact check you? Me. Oh yeah, they fact check it because they're gonna. If I'm gonna screw up and tell them a lie,
I just want to prove you wrong.
Oh yeah. And then I give them the names, and I was always cautious. I'd always say, well, I know they were both Tierney's, and I know one was John, and one was a carpenter, and one was an inspector. But I said, don't take it verbatim.
Right.
But I would see them. But also when I'd be out on the job back in the day, and I'd find someone doing something, I'd say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah. And they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, and the act says that you should do this. And now the new kids will grab the phone and check to make sure the act actually says it. And
Isn't that funny?
it is.
It's like,
because back in the day, nobody cared.
if I don't have to do it.
Yeah, if I can get out of it, I will. But
They see you coming in a plant, and they must people must stand a little taller. Boy, they look around and make sure they're doing the job right.
yeah, they called me the ambulance chaser.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'd show up
Make
and
sure
they'd
my
say,
harness is tight.
what is going on? Why is he here? You know, and I'd say, yeah. It was that way at first in the 90s when I first started.
Sure.
A shout out to a local company, Lamsar. They were the ones that took the shot and hired me. When I walked down the road, I said, I'm going to start my own company. And I remember that I went to Lamsar. Guy said, hey, Lamsar is looking for a safety man.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm their guy. And I went over and I met with the owners at the time, Joe Kennedy and John Healy. And I met them and I said, hey guys, I'm here. And it was funny because John Healy, who passed away now, he's gone, and we became good friends. And I remember he said, you know, don't really want you around here. He says,
Right.
We don't need a safety man.
Right.
And Buddy says, it looks like we're hiring you anyway. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I think. And but I went to work for him, and I stayed working for him for a long time within running my business. And then they were pretty well the ones that gave me my shot in the valley. And then another company, Neltec, Nelson Garrett, hired me, and I did a bunch of work for those guys in the insulation industry. And you know, so there was some companies that really took a shot at hiring me back in the day, and you know, I was forever grateful to those guys. And don't ever forget the horse guy in a race. I mean,
Right.
You know, and it was. Now I look back, and I really say, you know, if you want to do a job, do it right, give it your all, and make sure that you know the client and the customer is happy.
Yeah, very good. And they used to see you come in and get scared, and now they would see you come in and with lots of respect, right? So that's good.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Super impactful. And I meant that when I said I talked about you, and people, they all had different stories, but they all had the same common denominator about you, so that's cool. Let's shift gears now. We're here at the Bluewater Boxing Club. We're talking to Tom Hennessey. And I guess my next question would be, what was your first taste of boxing?
Wow. Again, arrived here, went to school.
Yeah. Did you do good in school? Or did you just kind of get through school?
Great at math.
Yeah?
Sucked at everything else.
Yeah, okay.
Horrible. But math was my thing. It was funny because I would get over 100 in math.
How do you get over 100 in math?
Because of bonus marks and stuff.
Oh, okay. All right.
and so like
sucked at
it was not unheard of for me to get 104. And the teachers would be mad at me. They would say, if you can get so high on that, why do you get so low on everything else? And I said, well, I don't like that stuff.
Right.
You know, my goal was to get 50, because if I got 50, my mom didn't hit me with the broom. So, you know, as long as I got above 50.
51.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was my goal. But with math, it just came easy. So, you know, we came here, went to school, Johns Memorial.
Yep.
Walked into the backyard of the school. We had been here for a week or so. Kid walks up to me and he says,
why am I not surprised? Go ahead, sir.
yeah, guy walks up to me and he says, hey. He said, what language do French Canadians speak? I think about it a second. I said, French. And he hits me, knocks me down. And I was small. Believe it or not, when we moved here and I was 12 years old, I was a little guy.
Okay.
And I looked up at him, and he said, you're a dumb newfie. You're not supposed to know that. So I left the schoolyard, and I went home, and I told my mom we lived at the time, we lived on Ross Avenue, just down the
Oh,
street.
yeah.
And my mom said, what happened? And I told her, and she goes, really? I said, yeah. And she says, actually to my sister, you better go talk to that guy. And my sister did, and she slapped him. But anyway, true story. And then my mom says, you know what? We need to find some place to put you to teach you how to box.
Right. Not fight, box.
Box.
Yeah.
And so we went to Knight's Boxing Club.
Oh, yeah.
And Knight's Boxing Club was down on the corner of Queen and Confed in the basement of the building that they're redoing
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
right.
Big long building.
Wow.
Right at the north end of the building, there's a stairway down the basement. And I went there, and Brian Knight and his dad, Mr. Knight, were there. Walked in, and there was me and several of the boys, Don for sure, Tone, probably Harl. And we walked in, and my mom walked us down. My mom never drove a day in her life.
No?
No, so we walked over, and she said, these kids want to learn how to box. And they went, yeah, well, that's what we do. And so I went in, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I would I would leave school to go. And Brian was a great teacher, good guy, ex-boxer. He used to put on a lot of what we called in the day smoker matches. So you just walk into wherever. Might be a bar, might be a gym, and you'd walk in and it wasn't regulated like it is today. And Brian would say, Tom, you can box that guy, and Donnie, you can box that guy over there. And
Oh, yeah.
there was no weigh-ins or medicals or anything. Just,
Right.
jump in there. And,
You had your gloves.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd give them to you, and then most places you go, they give the winner $10 and the runner-up $5,
Okay.
or it got to be 10 and 20. So we did that. And then I did that for quite a while, and I'd be honest, I don't remember the length of time, but and then of course work took over. I was busy at Drawbridge Inn and places, so
Were you a good boxer from the start?
horrible.
Yeah.
Little short arms.
Okay.
Started getting a big body because I was working out a lot. I had short arms. Matter of fact, Brian once said, he said, when you're done boxing, them guys are just as pretty as they were when they started. But he said some of them got sore sides because I just pounded on them.
Right.
When I get close to them, I pound on them. And so I sort of got away from it. Business, work.
Right.
And then
Priorities, yeah.
I got in the union in 1977. And I went to the Union Hall over on the corner of Indian and Divine.
Yeah.
And a guy running it by the name of Sylvio Fex.
Right.
And walked in the basement. And I says, hey, great place. Said, you looking for any help? Yeah, he says, you want to come around? Come around. So I started coaching with Sylvio. As far as I'm concerned, one of the best trainers there is in Canada and in the upper echelon in the world.
Really?
Of coaching, of training kids. Yeah, he was astounding, and he's struggling now with his health. He's in Alberta, and he's got some memory issues and stuff. And but I'll tell you what, I look back and say that Reiner was the guy that got me in business. The guy that got me in boxing was certainly Brian first, but the guy that truly got me to love the sport as far as coaching and stuff was Sylvio Fex.
Yeah. Wow.
His love for the sport and dedication was second to none. And if I could say to anybody who I aspired to be as good as, it would be Sylvio.
Wow. That's amazing. You've had a huge impact on the boxing world. And I look up on the wall here, and we'll take some video of that, and back here of so many great fighters have come out of, we'll mention Chuck Evans, Tim Taylor, Frank the Hammer White, and now his son Michael White at the Nationals. And there's a long list. I'm not leaving anybody out on purpose, but when did you start? You started Bluewater Boxing Club.
I did.
When was that?
Sylvio and I stayed together from, I guess I went there in the, like I said, 70s. Stayed with him right till 1995.
Yeah. And then, sorry, did you ask his permission? Like, did you go, I want to start my own thing, or how?
Oh, it was collaborative.
Yeah.
I said to him one night, I said, hey, Sylv, I think it's time to move on,
Yeah.
you know? And to be honest, and I try to be, Sylvio didn't want girls in the gym.
Oh, really?
And I did. I thought there was a place for females in boxing. And I told him that. And when Bluewater started in 1995, we had two classes. We had a class for boys and a class for girls. And, you know,
Why
so...
didn't he like that?
I
He's
think
just
old school.
Yeah, okay, fair
You
enough.
know, old school boxer, and didn't feel
Because I've
that-
asked the question to some of the ladies I've interviewed. I'm like, oh, if I was your dad, I don't know, I wouldn't be too. It's just a label, I guess, right?
And that was Sylvio at the time. I mean, he eventually he had female boxers. I mean,
Right. Yeah,
Justine Hunsinger that trains here
Yeah.
now was his girl when she was
okay.
young and stuff. So, you know, I mean, he did well with them, but yeah, just at the start, he didn't want anything to do with it. And I said, I really do. And I said, I think there's a place for it. And so he goes, okay. And I said, I'm going to go. And James Taylor was running the Bluewater Taekwondo Club.
Yep.
Came and seen James and said, hey, I'd like to start a boxing club upstairs. And he goes, well, let me think about it. And he said, I need 3 days. And he literally said that. And I walked away and I thought, well, I'll wait. And then 3 days later, I come back and he was in the little office downstairs. And I said, what do you think? And he goes, yeah, I think it's a good idea. He said, go up there. And so I spent some time up here. My son was boxing at Sylvio's gym
Oh, yeah.
at the time. So he said to me, he said, hey, Dad, when are we moving up to Bluewater? And I said, you're not. You stay here because, you know, you're doing okay with Sylvio, and we're just going to argue. And
It's kind of like, is it kind of like, I didn't want to teach my kids how to drive a car.
yeah,
Somebody else should do that. Because that's
Yeah,
just
my wife
dad
did
telling
mine.
me what to do, right? Yeah, I
yeah.
don't want to be told what to do. Yeah.
So he stayed with Sylvio, and some of the other kids would ask me if they could come up, and I said, no, stay with Syl. I mean, you know, I really wanted Bluewater to be my place.
Yeah, you didn't want to take anything away from him either.
No,
right? Yeah.
and
You respected
there
him.
was room for 2 gyms.
Yeah.
And so we started, and, you know, slow but sure, people walked up the stairs and started. And really, that's how it all started here. And, you know, yeah, we've had some successes over the years. I'm proud of every kid that's come through here. I'm as proud to say that if I ran down the list and, you know, I've got a chemical engineer and a mechanical engineer
Right.
and an ex-police officer, now she's retired. Go figure, she's retired now. Started boxing with me.
Right. That's a big compliment to the boxing world, but to, you know, what you've been able, again, have that impact on people. There's a whole lot more going on in that ring than just taking out your opponent. It's the focus, the training, the mindset. What makes, probably the word perfect isn't the right word, but what makes a great boxer?
Wow, I think determination.
Mm-hmm.
I think when somebody has a lot of determination to do well, I think it really helps them. You know, when a boxer, when a kid first walks up the stairs, I mean, the first goal is to see what's going on in their head, and to explain to them about the sport. And, you know, we've called it over the years the sweet science, the sport of kings, and so on. And I think it's true. And if you believe that and you tell the kids that, and the odd time I sit in the chair down there at the other end of the gym and I get all the kids to take a knee around and we talk about bullying, or we talk about drugs, or we talk about stuff. And I explain to them the importance of prioritizing, goal setting, and so on. And the ones that are good at it are chemical engineers and mechanical engineers, and because they took that determination and stuff, and they brought it into school with them, and they brought it into life.
That's cool.
And say, because I do it in in person. I'll say to them, hey, you see that kid up there? I use this one a lot. Hey, we just did the nationals. See that girl up there? See that name up there? She just was put in the Hall of Fame. She won the World Championship, and she was put in the Hall of Fame. And
so cool, right?
And so
you're talking about Jen Ogg. Huh?
Yeah, and she boxed for us.
Yeah.
And that's a proud moment.
Sure it is.
It's a proud moment that that Boxing Canada said, hey, you need to be in the Hall of Fame.
And that's a great story in itself, actually, Jen Ogg, because I remember we live streamed the inductees into the Hall of Fame. That to me too is I know I've told you this, but what an amazing experience. Never mind the boxing, but to just live stream that and witness. There were Olympic champions there that are still going today. The stories they told of not just success, but of defeat. But Jen in particular, you were like, she wasn't on a list to go to an event, and you got a hold of Boxing Ontario or Canada.
Boxing Canada.
And said, I'm paying for this if she doesn't win.
Yeah.
But if she wins, you're paying, and they went for it. And she went all the way. With a broken hand.
A broken hand. That's why they wouldn't send her. She won the Canadians.
Fair enough for them, but
she won the Canadians, so she was the girl to go, and then she broke her hand sparring.
Yeah.
And they said because she hasn't got time to train to go to the Worlds, she's not going. And I said, oh, she's going. And then I called Boxing Canada and I said, she's going, and I'll tell you what I'll do. If she goes and don't win a medal, I'll pay.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. And I said, but when she wins a medal.
Not if.
Not if.
When.
I said, when she wins a medal.
You pay, yeah.
Then you guys pay.
Yeah.
And I called her up and I told her that.
Right.
And
she's like, that's a lot of money. And you're like, I don't care about money.
I don't care.
It's only money.
I don't care. Her favorite story, and she told it at the event, at the thing, she said, she called me from a payphone.
Yep.
And she had just beaten the girl from Russia that put her into the medal round.
Right.
And she said, no, sorry, it was the girl from Brazil, and she beat her in the quarterfinals, and which put her in the medal round. She runs to a payphone and calls me up, and she says, hey, coach, I just saved you $5,000.
Right. Yeah. And you're like, all right, thank you very much.
And I said, no, that's not what I said. I said, listen, I don't give a damn about the money. I sent you there to win a gold medal. Give me a call when you're done. And I hung up. Wow. Because she still had work to do.
Right.
And the nice thing about Jen was,
thanks for the update.
When you get her mad, she channeled it better than anybody I knew.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, she would channel her energies, and so she did go on and win the gold medal. And like I said, when I said I would do the nationals, and they said you can do the nationals, they said, hey, we want to do a Hall of Fame presentation. And I said, great, yeah. And they said, hey, we're going to induct Dominic Filane and Egerton Marcus and Troy Ross, and the list went on. And Jennifer Ogg.
Yeah.
I went,
right on.
Okay. That's good. So I call her up and I said, hey, Jen, guess what? Because she's the president of Boxing Ontario today. She's given back to the sport herself. And I called her up and I said, hey, Jen, guess what? They're going to do an induction ceremony for the Hall of Fame in Sarnia, and you're on the list. And she said, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Cozumel at a triathlon. Yeah. And she'd already paid and bought.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's why we did the live stream and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Because of that. So, yeah.
Dominic Filane, like I had the privilege of speaking with him for quite some time, actually. And it's just, and I briefly with most of them as well, but that greatness, you felt it. Like, honestly, as the camera guy, and I know I'm a sentimental guy, but I was like, I just had to like dry up there a little bit, because there was and a lot of these guys and gals fought together at some point along the way.
Fought each other.
In their journey. Fought each other, right, yeah, right.
Well, as you well know, Dominic is a good friend of mine. Him and I traveled around the world a bit when I was still involved in boxing on an international scene a lot. I coached a lot, and Dominic was one of the guys that I went with a lot, and he was, as you know, needs to be said, he was overwhelmed that we live streamed it because he's a family guy from up in Scriber, Ontario, and big families, and his dad was just put
he wasn't doing well.
In the hospital, and so his dad and his mom got to watch his presentation.
He came up to me and before it all happened and asked, "Are you the guy doing this?" And he explained who it was, and he was very thankful. In fact, even during his speech, he mentioned my name, and I was like, "I'm just a camera guy, right?" But that's those kind of things that you do, that you've done, and those tiny little things like a live stream. They really can be impactful on so many people. And boxing, in general, in Canada, has been very impactful. And aside from the Bluewater Boxing Club and your business success, you've always recognized giving back into the community, whether you're sponsoring somebody or donating some things, whatever. And you've got a lot of great partners that you surround yourself with. Where did that come from mom and dad? Was that the whole community aspect?
I think that comes from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
When you go home to Newfoundland, people often tell me, I want to go to Alberta.
Right.
And I want to go to BC. Mm-hmm. And I want to see the mountains.
Yeah.
And I want to see the ocean.
Yeah.
And I want to see this and I want to see that.
It is cool.
And it is cool. And I tell them, but go to Newfoundland and see the people.
I've been to the East Coast a few years ago, out to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And so friendly. I haven't made it to Newfoundland yet, but I've had friends of mine who've been out there, and they're like, now they go like every August. They're like, August is beautiful. And
the people is what makes the difference. And I think the community in my hometown that I grew up in, we had a lot of relations, but I lived on a street with 12 houses, and every single person on the street was my cousin, literally. And so, you learn very quickly community, and you also learn how to fight. But you realize that a fight is only a fight. A boxing match is only a boxing match. It's not a war. And if you win in a boxing match, then you respect the person that you just won against. And I try never to say lose, even up here. I always say, hey, we had lots of good runner-ups, or we had lots of good.
Yeah, right.
I don't like saying lost.
You had
because
a great effort in that ring too.
Yeah. And you box, and you win and you learn. Mm-hmm. And respect. I always tell my kids when I'm in the corner, and I'm very adamant about it. I say, if you go in there and lose, say nothing. If you win, say less.
Right.
And I don't like people jumping around and stuff. And you'll notice when Mike won the title and he won the national championship, he didn't jump around. He just raised his hand. And he jumped around lots when we got him out of the ring.
Sure, right, yeah.
But in the ring, don't
Everybody around him was jumping for him.
don't disrespect
Yeah.
the person you're in the ring with. Come out of the ring, and then we can do all the celebrating and jumping up and down you want.
And he really kept that composure because, you know, I've gotten to know Michael a little bit, and then know his dad and mom for quite some time. So I made sure I wanted a picture with that boy, and he was very composed. I mean, he was excited. I go, "How you doing?" He goes, "I'm really excited." You could tell he was kind of holding on for a bit. And then it was like, okay, go see your mom and dad, and he got through that, and then
Yeah.
that's great teachings though, because you've got to learn to lose, but you really got to learn how to win.
You sure do.
And that's not about that's those are good lessons, and you know those lessons again go up to the hangings on the wall. And I remember Melody actually said to me, we got talking about family is what the boxing world, and especially here, is she said, like, Tom, talk to me about money, the things we don't necessarily learn in school, like money, and don't worry about money too much, but save your money. All these lessons, right? So you're like a dad to a lot of these, and depending on their age, maybe an uncle. I don't know, but
yeah, you're right.
family.
And it's a dad, it's a mom, it's what they lack. Whatever they lack, you try to fill in.
Right.
And Melodia's case, she doesn't lack a dad. She has one. He lives down in Hawkesbury, but he's not here. So she'll call, and she's traveling around the U.S. right now.
I know, right?
Matter of fact, she called me this morning and said she was going to the Grand Canyon because she's on her way back to Colorado because she was visiting somebody down in Arizona.
Yeah.
And but she calls usually every couple of days. Says, "Hey, coach, I'm doing this today," and I go, "Great," but I keep my spot. I'll be back, But yeah, I think that's what does it for your heart when you're in this sport, is that if you truly listen to the kids and you learn as much from them as they learn from you. And you learn when they're not feeling good or they're not doing well. And I'm proud to say, and I used to always say to people about safety, don't say you were lucky. Safety is not luck. Safety is good planning.
Right. I was going to say, plan that well.
And the odd time guys, he'd say something about safety and he'd knock on wood, and I'd say, "What did you do that for?" It's not luck.
Yeah.
Don't ever look at it as luck.
You planned it out right.
You planned it out
You were
right.
aware, you were conscious
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And I can say that over the years, because mental health issues are very prominent today, and I'm proud of the fact that we haven't had a whole lot of. Don't get me wrong, we got lots of kids that got some mental health things that they work through.
Yep.
But we've never had a whole lot of problems with people that can't find their way out of it. We always seem to find someone that they can go talk to, or someone that they can deal with. Because I'll tell you what, there's nothing more catastrophic to me than lose one of the kids that come in here to a mental health issue. So we have those talks a lot. They say, I always talk about bullying, and I always talk about drugs, and I always talk about mental health, and I always talk about things like that, because that's life. That's the true part of life that we have to deal with.
And they're hard conversations.
Very hard conversations.
My dad always said, if it feels like it's going to be a hard or awkward conversation, it's probably one that needs to be had sooner than later.
And true story. and face it. Don't walk away from it. And it's important to me. And the kids that come up here, I try to post once a day or once every couple of days.
We're getting you there, Tom.
I try to post on there of what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
And the place is jammed.
I see them. I look forward to seeing them, just so you know. Like I follow and see them running around the gym, or seeing them work out, or whatever it is. And I think it's good that you showcase that. And you're very well respected in many different circles. I know you love the hockey too, right? You know, you're down at the Sarnia Sting, and go Sting.
Yeah,
and
on a 3-game winning streak.
Right. So good for you, Tom. And you know, I've known you a long time, but we've only, like I say, in the last few years, really started building a relationship. And I'm proud to know you well. And I'd like to make fun of you too, right?
Oh, 100%. Wherever possible.
And I know it comes back. I'm 100% for sure. But I can't thank you enough for your time here today, because I know you're a busy guy. But thank you very much.
You know, Dave, it's my pleasure, really. And you don't like to take the accolades. You always try to cut me off when I say things to you when we're doing things at the Moose or doing things. And it's this kind of a platform that helps us, that are passionate about our sport, passionate about our community, passionate about anything that to do with kids. And it's a platform like this where we can talk. The kids love to hear it. They really do. They love to hear that this Bluewater is doing well. They're Bluewater proud, if you will. And it's important to me that kids think that. Both downstairs with the Taekwondo and upstairs with the boxing. Yes. And it's, you know, you do a lot of interviews with people, and my kids will say, hey, did you see they did an interview? Dave did an interview for Mike. I'm going to have one of those.
Really?
And there's two things that kids want. And they want a little bit of accolades. They want a banner up on the wall. And we gave Mike his last night.
Yeah, I saw that.
At the draw. and he was proud as punch to get his banner.
Yeah, you could tell.
After he won the Nationals, it's funny. He won the Nationals. He walked over to the ring, give me a hug. And before he went back to have his hand raised, he knew he won. The scores are up. And he says to me, when do I get my banner? He was standing in the ring.
Sounds like Michael.
And which is good. I mean, they're proud of that fact. And I got other kids now that are saying to me, boy, I can't wait to get one of those. But I also have, hey, one of these days I'm going to have an interview.
Well, maybe you got to set the standard. Say, well, if you do this, then I'll talk to David and we'll make that happen.
I will do that. And they need to, but it's funny because, you know, Mike asked, you know, he doesn't have a tag name. He doesn't have his nickname.
Yeah.
And he wanted it. He wanted it so bad. And he would always say to me, when do I get a nickname? I said, when are you going to do something? And,
that's true. Right.
And he won nationals.
So did he get a name?
He did get a name.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell people here. I told him that a couple of nights ago. When he got out of the ring, I walked over. I spoke to you for a minute, and you said congratulations, you know. And I walked around the ring. A lady walked up, and she said to me, she said, "Hey Tom, you don't know me. I'm Mrs. So and so." And she says, "I've known Michael since he was a little boy." And she said, "I got a question for you." And she said, "What's that?" I said, She said, "Where is that golden boy?"
So there you go. So Mike, the golden boy White.
That's him.
That's awesome.
And I said, so I told him, I said, I didn't name you. Some lady was looking for you, and you know what? It fits.
I was standing there. I remember that. Actually.
He is a golden boy, cool. And he's been a golden boy for us, and he works his heart out. And I'm very proud of the fact that lots of national champions.
Yeah.
We have one. And listen, every single night in that ring, we got a whole bunch that are still aspiring, and we're going to make them national champions.
And just so you know, I will support you. I am never getting in that ring. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Me either.
Right. Thanks to all of you for watching. I wish we had more time. We'll have to do a follow-up like another year from now. But click the like, the love, and of course the share button. But as always, that's the time. That's all the time I've got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here in the show. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.